Hey guys, here's the first YouTube lecture, the first official one. Again, I'm going to be using these videos to kind of introduce you to concepts. I'm going to be introducing ideas. I'm also going to be using these videos to give you an idea of what I want you to do and the assignments that I'm expecting to be completed by the end of the week. May not always cover all of them, but I'll make sure that I communicate to you as well as I possibly can. When I start recording these videos, it's always a little chaotic because I'm kind of doing this along and along, and there may come a time where there's a little bit of a miscommunication. Don't freak out if that happens. I try to allow for people to catch up in situations like that, and I try to make this, as leisurely paced as I can. Try to clearly communicate to you what I want each week. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over some content with you. I'm going to go over some of the stuff that your textbook introduces you to. In my opinion, doesn't do it very well. Again, I'm not requiring you to purchase the textbook for this class, but I am going to refer to it because it is how I built this course. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you the first big assignment that I want you to do, the first component of the writing portfolio. So it's going to be in two parts. So let's cover some content, shall we? Let's talk about some stuff that's important that might appear on a test later. When we talk about business communication, one of the things that we have that's really important is how business communication has changed and what's actually going on in the world today. One of the problems with the textbook is that it covers things from a really traditional standpoint. It talks about things like physical memos, business letters, business reports, and we're going to talk about those things. But what the textbook doesn't do very well, in my opinion, is talk about what the business world is like right now and the things that you need to do to prepare for it. Now, one of the big changes in the business world has been the adoption of social media. Things like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. These things are important, and they're slowly but surely pushing their way into the business world and changing the way we communicate. Now, there's some things you need to understand about this, but let me give you a little bit of history. You guys might not be aware of this, but the memo. We used to have memos in business, and memos had very specific formats. They did very specific things. We're going to talk about memos in a little bit. But memos gave birth to the format of the email. When you write an email and you have the little to bar, and you have the subject bar, you have the body, that is the way memos were traditionally formatted. When they created the email, they simply just took the template of the memo and they ran with it in electronic format. And it's kind of interesting to think about the fact that emails came from a very specific place. They were modeled after something very specific. So as we move forward, you might see that a lot of these traditional business formats are being co-opted by, new technology. And I think it's interesting because this really complicates business communication in a lot of ways. And my uncle works at a nuclear power plant, and just recently they've started allowing them to communicate using Facebook at the nuclear power plant. Now, why would they do this? Well, the business, the facility, won't have to invest so much in communication infrastructure. They won't have to have email servers. They won't have to have IT people, running in every direction, making sure the email is up if they're using Facebook. Now, there are security issues with this, and I think it's important to understand that. But Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, these things are becoming less and less technologies you use to goof off, and more stuff that you can use in a business sense, that you can use to communicate with while you're at work. Now let me talk about the confidentiality stuff, now that we're kind of hovering on this. It's important that even though social media is pushing its way into the business world, it's important to consider the fact that in certain businesses, we have to guard the confidentiality of our customers, and we have to guard our data. Let me give you a specific example. The medical community. Medicine has a very big need to keep things confidential. Why? Because when you're in a medical field, people don't want the world to know the diseases they're working with, or they don't want people to know their medical history. That can mess with your insurance. It can mess with your personal life. It can really cause a lot of hardships. And so in the medical community, we have to be really careful of what information we release. We have to be careful about what we talk about. Now, since this social media stuff is pushing its way into the business world, it's really important to familiarize yourself with these technologies before you use them, so that when you do use this stuff, you don't accidentally send it to people you didn't mean to, that you don't accidentally send a whole bunch of messages out there, that you have to know how to control this stuff. You need to be very intimately familiar with it. And the only way to do that is to use it. The only way to do that is to allow yourself to get into that space so that you don't make these mistakes later. But you have to be really cognizant of it. You have to be aware of it. Now, another thing I want to talk to you guys about, social media isn't just infiltrating the business world in the way that we communicate with each other when we're in a business. It also is infiltrating the way that we let the world know about us. Let me give you an example. One of the things that's really common right now is a discussion about what's growing is personal brand. Personal brand is so important when you're looking for a job, because in the modern world, it's not enough to just simply sit in a chair in an interview, hand an employer your resume, and say, there's all this stuff about me. Think about this. What if instead of using Facebook to post pictures of yourself at that embarrassing party over the weekend, what if you used Facebook to find people who will be working in your field? What if you used it to talk about things in the industry? What if you used it to post stories and to get discussion going? What if when you sit down in that chair in that interview, you hand them your resume and you say, you know, this is my resume, this is my work experience, this is all me. But you can also look at my Twitter account. You can see all the connections I have with the industry, and you can see the things that I've talked about, that I've been exploring this. Do you guys see how powerful that is? Do you see how you can leverage it and say, this is a tool that I'm using to show you my familiarity with an industry, to show you that I'm passionate about this, to show you that I am ambitious? Social media can be so powerful when you use it to accomplish a specific goal, rather than just hanging out with your friends on the weekend. Now, how do we draw that line between our Facebook profile that's for us, and how do we draw that line between that professional profile? Again, I'm not going to, force you to go into that direction too much, because I can't require it in this class. I would love to, but there's a lot of security concerns here at GEICA that I can't even access this stuff at this school. Whereas, it's important for you to learn how to build personal brand, but it's hard for me to assess it. The best way to do this is to have a Facebook profile that you use for personal, your personal profile page. Lock it down, make it to where no one can see it but people that you approve. But have another Facebook account or another Twitter account that's used to be very public, to talk about the things that are in your professional life, and to build that personal brand. And I want you guys to consider that moving forward. Now, we'll go over this stuff, and I'm going to have a little exercise just kind of going over this material, just also to kind of test to make sure you guys are keeping up with me and that you can address the stuff I'm doing in the video. Now, I have another assignment I want you to do this week. Excuse me. Allergies. Anyway, we're going to be doing a writing portfolio. It's going to be a gigantic portfolio full of professional writing. Now, this is a little bit of a problem. When I say professional writing, what am I talking about? Well, the first thing we're going to do is an assignment that I'm calling the proposal. It's going to be a memo format. I'm going to give you a template for how a typical memo looks. And we're going to practice writing a memo. But I need to give you something to write about, right? You can't just write a memo just out of thin air. You need something to do with it. So below this video, I'm going to link you to a template that shows you what a memo looks like. And I know memo sounds really lame, but just bear with me, because it is, it's required by the state. I have to show you this. But also, it kind of gets us started. It gets us, into that formal, professional business communication style. Here's what I want you to do. And, we don't have to think about this as being set in stone. But let's do a brainstorming activity. Let's think for a little bit about, what are we going to write about? We're going to write a bunch of memos. We're going to write a bunch of business letters. We're going to write a business report, and we're going to do all this stuff to build personal brand, and we're going to, we're going to really cover an industry. But we have to think really long and hard about the industry we want to be a part of. You can do this in several ways. Maybe you want to write as an employee at a certain company. Maybe you want to get into retail. Maybe you want to get into retail and electronics. Maybe you want to work at Best Buy. They're doing terrible right now, but that's realistic. Maybe you want to work at a construction company. Maybe you want to work at, maybe you want to work in a doctor's office. I don't know. An easy way to get into this might be to think about your major. What are you studying? What job do you want to have? What industry do you want to belong to? We can think about this, again, either as the company you want to work for or the industry that you're interested in. So here's what I want you to do this week. I'm going to put that memo template below this video. And I want you to write me a memo. using that template. Now, again, this is going to be a little weird, but I want you guys to be a little challenged. You know, you have to write this memo. You have to make it look like the memo. Don't worry if you make a lot of mistakes, because I'm going to go over this. I'm going to talk to you guys about it. But I want you to write me a memo about what you want to do. And I know that's really, really meta. It's kind of strange. It's complicated, but give it a shot. We're brainstorming now, and you're writing this memo to me, telling me about the topic you want to generate all this professional writing on. So, you know, it's a little weird, and, you know, I'm kind of throwing you to the wolves a little bit, but that's okay. We need to get used to being required to write on the spot. So this is the basic requirements I want attached to this video. Single memo telling me about what you plan to do. I also am going to put this in a discussion format. This discussion format is, you're going to reply to it. Everyone in the class is going to be able to see it, because I'm probably going to follow up with another question later. Now, I'm also going to put up a discussion question about the confidentiality stuff that I've already introduced to you. So you have two things to do this week. I will put it in the week 1 directions. It's going to reference this video, and you guys can put it all together. If you guys are confused, if it's a little too much, email me. I'm happy to clarify, because sometimes these online courses can get a little chaotic. So don't be afraid to contact me and be like, Mr. Bailey, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's all right. I understand. But that's the material for this week. We're going to go ahead and start generating some topics for us to write about. I think that's all for me. You guys have a lovely day. Awesome. Can't wait to see what you come up with.